Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life. Welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. I'm your host, Madison Malloy, and on today's episode, I am sitting down with Hollywood power player, exec, one of my favorite people, Robert Friedman. He is the CEO of Bungalow Media, and he has the most fascinating backstory. He has worked for companies like Playboy, New Line Cinema, MTV, you name it. He is here to talk about all things Hollywood, all things content, and the rise of AI and the impact it's going to have. This is a must-listen episode. We will be right back after this brief message with our guest on Next to Madison. Hi, it's your host, Madison Malloy. For those of you who don't know, I've written and created a powerful collection of books to help you build confidence, shift your mindset, and attract the life you truly want. From Time to Lighten the F Up, to Affirm and Flourish, Color Your Way to Abundance, and more. These aren't just books, they're tools for transformation. Grab a copy now on Amazon or at madisonmalloy.com. Now back to the show. All right, we are back on this very fun episode of Next to Madison. With us, we've got mega producer, Hollywood exec. We call him Bobby in the lobby, but Robert Friedman. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello.
How you doing? I'm so excited to have you. You're like a Hollywood icon. You were part of the original team that started MTV. Mm-hmm. Then you went to Playboy. Mm-hmm. Then you ran New Line Cinema. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then now you're the CEO of your own production company that's thriving. So give us a little bit of like how you got into this and like what were some of the biggest things you learned?
Well, I'll tell you, whereas kids today are making a movie when they're a sophomore in college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it's kind of an interesting story because I know you at one point wanted to go into finance. Yeah? The predecessor company to MTV when I got out of business school was Warner Amex Satellite Entertainment Company. And the head of American Express, a joint venture with Warner's, was a guy whose son was my roommate in business school. So he said, we're starting this cable channel. It was 1980. Wouldn't it be kind of fun? You kind of could be cool. He always wanted me to be his assistant. By the way, his assistant was Jamie Dimon, who's now the head of JP Morgan.
Oh, shit.
But this guy was one of my, my dad was a doctor. He was a guy in business, Sandy Weil. And he said, do you interested in doing this? So I went there a year before we launched, because as everyone knows, we launched in 1981 in August. Do you know the song or the video that we launched to?
Was it Video Killed the Radio Star?
By whom?
Wham?
The Buggles. But that's
close.
Was
Video Killed the Radio?
It was Video Killed the Radio Star.
Okay.
So I did that for about a decade. And then, I'd like to say I was probably the first person to ever leave MTV on our own will because we all loved it. Yeah. And Christy Hefner had just been anointed as the CEO of Playboy. And she came to me and said, I have this public company. I was really young. Would you be interested in running the entertainment piece of Playboy? And I said, yes. I commuted to LA for a couple of years. We did a little bit of a turnaround. Yeah. My office was actually at the Playboy Mansion next to Hef's office, which I think is a movie in and of itself. Yeah. So I commuted to LA. About 2 years later, New Line Cinema, many of the independent studios didn't have television divisions. And they said, would you start our television division? They didn't even have an LA presence. And they had done Freddy Krueger and a lot of stuff in the horror space, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I said, that would be really a lot of fun. Yeah. So I launched their television division in New York. About 2 years later, we were bought by Ted Turner, the infamous Ted Turner. And 2 years after that, we were bought by Warner's. About 5 years in of the 10 years that I was there as well, I was made the co-chairman of New Line. So I also had the film division to work on, which was great. And I got a little lucky. We had a good run. We had Austin Powers, Dumb and Dumber, Lord of the Rings. During that period of time, Rush Hour, Shine. We had a division that did independent film called Fine Line. So we did Hoop Dreams and a few other things. Having said that, I was there for a long time. It was great. Fast forward, 10 years after I was there, AOL bought Time Warner in that horrific merger, as we all know. Yeah. But Bob Pittman, who was running AOL at the time, had been the head of MTV when we first started. Right. So Bob said, would you come over to AOL? So I was actually the president of AOL for a couple of years. And then I decided to do some more entrepreneurial things. So I left, and rolled up and took in what's called a private equity deal. What was Golden Books. We all grew up with those little books with the little golden spine, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we sold that a few times. As a matter of fact, Jeffrey Katzenberg actually bought it ultimately at his company on the West Coast. And then after we sold that, I went to a company called Radical Media, which was a company that was a commercial production company to start their content division. So we did Mad Men, we did Iconoclast, we did a bunch of stuff in that space where we brought in third-party advertisers. We did Oprah's show, Masterclass.
Yeah.
I did that, and then we sold that company to Fremantle or Bertelsmann, and that was about 9 years ago now. And one of my big mentors, Jeff Sagansky, who had run Columbia TriStar and had run CBS, said, "Oh, why don't you come and run my companies?" And I said, Jeff, if I'm going to do something that's not a big multinational company, I might as well do my own thing. And he says, "Okay, I'll be your first investor." So I'm at Bungalow Media and Entertainment for the last 9 years. We're private equity backed. Jeff is one of them. Loeb Partners is one. And recently, Mario Gabelli, the big financier, who was the biggest owner of Paramount, as a matter of fact, invested in Bungalow. So that's where I've been for the last 9 years. And, we do mostly television. About 80% of what we do is in the television space, because it's tough to be in the film space as an independent. Because it's really tough. The economics don't work. You have to work 5 years. And to be honest, I'd love to sell this company within the next 5 years, so I don't want to have to work 5 years to do a movie and then. So in any case, we've done some, fun things at Bungalow. I mean, we just recently won an Emmy for a Little Richard film.
That's amazing.
We did the Epstein series. So we've done some stuff that I'm really proud of, and we created a team. As a matter of fact, my head of production was the head of production at MTV 40 years ago.
Yeah, but it just goes to show you that, like, your relationships are so important at the beginning of your career and all the way through, because everybody kind of circles around, that you never really burn those bridges, because you just never know where people are going to end back up again.
You're 100% right, and that's very astute. I mean, we're in business with the same people we were in business with then. And I will tell you, the difference is that when you were co-chairman or a senior person at MTV, whatever happened to you, you didn't know if it was you or if it was the company that you worked for. Because we were spending tens of millions of dollars on films and releases. So when you got a Man of the Year, or you got advertising guru, or you got whatever, you didn't know if it was really you. So having your own company really is a sort of a different way to move forward. And it's very rewarding, and it's been a hoot. I wish I had done it 10 years earlier.
Yeah, well, at least you did it. So now you don't have to lay on your deathbed going, "I wish I would have done that."
That's true.
And
I figure I've probably got like 15 or 20 good summers left.
In
my life. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you could have. Well, I feel like with all the advancements and everything, especially in medical, I mean, I don't want to live forever, because that's not normal. But if you can live well, and optimize all the years you have, then why would you not? And I feel like there's a lot of stem cell things that are being developed. And
it's funny you mentioned that. I'm on the board of a hospital in New York, Mount Sinai Medical Center, and it's probably my most important endeavor, because it will hopefully keep me going. But having said that, it's unbelievable what we're beginning to see in terms of medicine, as well as in the entertainment business. I mean, AI has taken us to a place that no one ever anticipated.
Well, let's talk about that, not only in medical but in film. There is a huge benefit to it. It's making things a little more affordable to do, but actors are starting to lose their shit a little bit. Do you think we're going to start seeing TV shows and films with only AI?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, first of all, you have to differentiate scripted from unscripted. Because I think it's going to move a little bit more easily in the unscripted space, because you can do things in unscripted, and we're already beginning to do them. So at our company, we do a lot of research using AI. I mean, people talk about AI like it's brand new. AI has been around for a while. It's basically Google on steroids. So we use it in a big way in terms of the research that we do. But in terms of the recre that we do, when we tell a story, and we do a lot in the crime space, as you can imagine. We did Panama Papers. we have a show, It Couldn't Happen Here, with Hillary Burton from One Tree Hill.
Okay.
And, in those shows, a lot of the people are not alive or around. And to do the recreate using AI is amazing. Because it used to be that the faces, it wasn't great with faces and it was great with locations. But now it's getting to a point where you really can't tell the difference. And you don't have the issues in terms of IP or intellectual property when you do it in an unscripted way.
Okay.
For the scripted side, and that was really what the strike was all about 2 years ago, which was, if you're going to take someone's likeness without their permission, or the story that someone's written without their permission, and basically AI is really just based on what's been published. So it is more difficult, and I think the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild came up with some great firewalls, if you will, to protect against it. But in the unscripted space, it's amazing. In places like Madison, it's also amazing because it can actually go through all the stuff that's been published and save doctors an awful lot of time. I have a wife, who's a physician. I have a daughter who's a doctor at University of Pennsylvania. She spends hours a night in doing charts and writing things going. So AI really helps. And every day when you do Zooms now, because half of what we all do is on Zoom.
Yeah.
It's no longer in person. It's amazing to get a summary, an AI summary that awesome. Saves you so much time.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of technology. I think the velocity of change is so rampant right now that it scares people, but at the same time it will provide a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think as far as like actors and actresses go? Like,
I think there'll be protections in place.
Okay.
I do think we're still going through a learning phase about how to use it. And I think people will figure out the right ways to use it. There are enough protections in place. But, it's going to be a learning curve, so to speak. I mean, this is something that is blowing up in a period of 3 years. I mean, to give you an example.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
It's crazy. I was thinking about Netflix the other day.
Yeah.
Netflix is probably the first time it went online or video, because it used to be you had an envelope, you put your video in it, and you sent it.
Oh,
back.
I got to tell you real quick. So when I was studying at Bentley, and it was finance accounting school, so you had to take these mandatory classes. So even though I was a finance major, everyone had sophomore year had to take accounting, and so that semester 2002, I just dated myself. We had to do all the balance sheets. Well, thank you. All the balance sheets, the income statements, everything for a little new company called Netflix. And I'm like, good God. And we literally got all the stuff, and you had to build the spreadsheets and balance everything. And it was like, it was just, you order these DVDs. And I'm like, good God, if I had just invested at that moment.
Well, a little funny story. At that time, one of my roommates in business school had been the head of 7-Eleven. And he approached them. He was the head of Blockbuster at the time.
Yeah.
To merge. And the only thing that was sort of stood in its way is that they didn't want to use the Blockbuster name. But if you take a look at the velocity of change as a result of Netflix, it was probably 2007 that it was the first time it went online for a thing. In 2015.
But they existed. They existed, but it wasn't online.
You had to put in an envelope. It wasn't video on demand, basically.
Right.
And in 2015, they did their first original, I think it was like Lilyhammer or something.
No, it was Orange is the New Black 2013.
Oh, it was 2000. Okay.
Because I was in acting class at that time with Laverne Cox.
Okay, so that was the first original.
Yes.
Okay, right now, in the year, let's even go back 2020, they have 250 million subscribers. And people say, how did that happen? And I think what happened was, which is part of I don't want to say the cause for a lot of the challenges today for other media companies, but literally in 2022, I think it was, they had more Emmys than any other streaming service in the world. And a lot of it is because Wall Street gave them a pass out of jail.
Yeah.
They were spending so much money. And all the other media companies said, let's go direct to the consumer the way they do.
Yeah.
So, and sort of get rid of the cable operator.
Right.
And guess what? They had to spend so much money on this content, which is sort of why now there's such a disaggregation of media and a lot of the consolidation that we're beginning to see, because it was too expensive to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You couldn't create enough content.
Well, it's crazy because now it's, with social media, I mean, the younger generations, I watch it with my nieces, when they get a chance to sit in front of a TV, they're not watching shows. They are literally watching YouTube.
Yeah. Well, YouTube is by far the largest network that exists today.
But I love the fact that social media and YouTube has given the everyday person a platform. And it's almost like, you're big into reality TV. We've worked on some stuff together. And it's like you're able to run your own reality show.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
It has definitely gotten rid of some of the barriers to entry for young people who could just put something up. But I think at the same time, there are other challenges with some of this new media. I mean, it is difficult to sell a show to the networks, because right now on YouTube, you're really just participating in the advertising sales that come from it. It used to be that they would give you a license fee for a show.
Okay.
But now you really, really have to cut through the clutter. And there's a lot of clutter that's out there. And for these young people who are trying to sell a show or come up with a show, most pitches are now done online on Zoom, and they don't know the buyers. So you're sitting in a world right now that if you're a young person that wants to sell a show to NBC or to any of the cable networks, it's difficult. It's also difficult because if you're just a consumer, most of our kids or your nieces and nephews, they cut their cord with the cable companies, and they said, I'm just going to subscribe to Netflix. But it's kind of funny. They were spending $60 a month on cable, and now they subscribe to Netflix for $10. Then they want Paramount Plus. Then they want Disney Plus. They're at $60. That's what's going to really break down the system. And that's why I think there's consolidation, because there's not enough room for young people who want to subscribe to all these things to spend $60, $70, $80 a month. So something's going to fall out.
Yeah, and there's almost too much content. Have you ever noticed it when you go to one of those streamers like Netflix, and you're like, let's watch a movie, and it takes an hour to find a movie because there's too much. I think consumers want less choices. I really do.
Yeah, but I think getting back to the AI thing, already when I go on Netflix and it says to me, this is more for you.
Yeah.
They are very often correct. The difference is that I share my Netflix account with my wife and other people in the home.
Yeah.
So, but I think the AI is going to get us to a place where they have a good idea of what you want to watch. Because think about this. You grew up with cable. I mean, right?
Actually, I didn't have cable till I was in high school because my dad couldn't afford it. We got cable TV when I was a freshman in high school. It was a big deal to finally have MTV.
But you knew cable network, MTV.
Well, because my friends. So I'd go to my friend's house
and watch cable. So when you went to watch as a young child and you went to watch Nickelodeon, you went to see Nickelodeon, and Nickelodeon meant something to you. It was a little bit bad. It was kids versus parents. It was not Saturday morning TV. And when we had a game show, because I worked on Nickelodeon, when we had a game show, what happened to you if you won the game show?
You got slimed.
You got green slimed. So it had a brand that meant something. What's interesting right now, which I think is a big change in the entertainment business, as the cable networks are being spun off and the cable networks that aren't are being lodged on their streaming services, they all had a brand that meant something. So MTV, I'll tell you, because I was there early on. The reason MTV lasted is because we came up with a positioning for MTV. Unexpected, not normal. So when we had Tony Bennett at the time, and I know everyone knows Tony Bennett now because of Lady Gaga, but at the time, he was an older folk. No one knew who he was. And the cable operator kept saying, remember, our buyers were I shouldn't go poo-poo because I'm in that range, but they were 60-year-olds. They weren't rock and rollers. Right. And they would sit there and say, you're having Tony Bennett say, I want my MTV? Yes, because they knew we were cool, and it was unexpected to have an old guy doing I want my MTV because they didn't know his music.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon was we versus they. Not unlike consumer products. Avis was we try harder because we're number 2. When they were number 1, they had to try harder. So now we have a world in entertainment that these brands don't mean what it means.
Right.
So if you go to Paramount Plus, Disney's a little different because the brand has some equity. But if you go to HBO Max or you go to Peacock or you go to Netflix, it's not like the brand necessarily means something to you. I would argue maybe Netflix means that you're getting a lot of stuff because it has everything. And Peacock, maybe you're getting the NBC shows, and you can go on and on. But it's not a brand like we grew up with in cable. That's what's going to be the big challenge, I think, in the entertainment business going forward.
Yeah.
How do they get people, when you go to Netflix, for you to say, I'm going to Netflix because it has X and Y and Z. Right now, you probably do it because it has so much of the great new stuff.
But when you bring up that example, like Paramount Plus,
Right.
I only subscribed to Paramount Plus because I wanted to watch Landman. As soon
Or
as it was over, I canceled it, and then I'm going to go back.
Sheridan
Yes.
thing, and he's now moving to Netflix.
Oh,
and I think
okay.
Paramount Plus will keep him in certain things, but not for the Westerns.
Interesting.
But the question is, how are you going to know? There's so much, to your point, stuff out there. How do you know what to watch?
Well, that's the thing, too. And also, you don't want to watch too much because then you become just a useless member of society. So you've got to monitor your social media. You got to monitor your Netflix. You really got to monitor this stuff.
Right.
You know? Like, I think I just feel like maybe we have too many options.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there.
But it's crazy how it's always been hard to sell a show in Hollywood, right? It's like everybody's dream and only a few get it. But now there's so many platforms to sell to. Why do you think it's still so hard when they're looking for content?
Yeah, I think it's hard for a couple of reasons. And some of them are kind of it's just the way they are. If you don't have representation, meaning an agent or a manager, it's tough to even get access to the buyer. And those are buyers for cable networks or streamers or whatever. They won't take your call. If you send something in cold, you get back a note saying, please sign this because we may have your idea already. And the chances of finding the right person to sell is difficult.
Yeah.
So for the organized networks and streamers, it is just as tough as it's always been. And I would argue it may even be tougher since COVID. Because since COVID, most of the presentations you do are on Zoom. And when they're on Zoom, someone who manages to get that meeting, to give a good idea to a buyer, to be perfectly honest, if you've never met the person, do you want to be in business with that person? It gets back to what you said. If you've been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, are there fewer barriers to entry? Only on those platforms that you can put something on. Mr. Beast, give me a break. The guy's got, 500 million? I mean,
he's
some
amazing.
crazy stuff. So I think that there are examples of folks that have broken through. But it's tough because on the one hand, you're trying to break through in one of these things. And on the other hand, so if you write a great script, my assistant at New Line wrote the first Final Destination while he was my assistant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I remember saying to Jeffrey, I love this script. It's amazing. We're going to negotiate this project, and I'm going to take your name off of it so you don't get screwed. Because if you're junior and you're doing something, they'll give you don't have a quote, meaning you don't have a price tag.
Yeah.
So it's just difficult. It's like in any other business if you're a newbie in the business.
Yeah.
So you need the access, and access is tough to get in the business. It's even tough to get for veterans today.
Right.
Because the people you're pitching are also in the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week.
Yeah. No, it's
so it's tough. I was out in L.A. a couple weeks ago because we have 2 films which are going to be a big part of Doc NYC in a few weeks.
Okay.
And we were out there doing a pitch at the same time that we were finishing production on one of them. And the buyers from a big network said to me, God, it's so great to be hanging with you and being in person and going out for a drink. It's rare to meet in person anymore.
It's sad.
And it's kind of a bummer. I'm thrilled to get to the office, to be honest, to be with my team.
Well, yeah.
And we're only in the office 3 days a week.
And more gets done. And I think it's very healthy. I think human beings, are designed to kind of have a structure and a purpose, obviously a purpose. But leaving your house and getting up at the same time is a very healthy thing to do. But I feel with this remote work, a lot of people are rolling out of bed 5 minutes before they have to clock on. And then by the time noon, because this happened to me during COVID, by the time noon rolled around, I'm like, did I even brush my teeth?
Yeah.
Like, what the? Like, that is not a sustainable...
I think we're kind of living through a time where some of the folks are saying you have to go back 5 days a week, maybe because they really believe it.
Or they want to take advantage of the space they're
Or
paying
they want
for.
to take advantage of the space. But, in my case, I do think 3 days and maybe certain weeks, 4 days, when it's a short week, makes sense because you can get a lot of work done at home, especially with Zoom. And, it's tough. I mean, I work as hard when I'm remote as I do in the office, maybe even a little bit harder because all the Zooms are managed back to back to back to back.
Right. So it's always that.
Yeah, and you don't have to travel.
Yeah. So let's talk about a lot of filming locations. A lot of, it used to be you had to be in LA, you had to be in New York. Now you do not. In fact, you don't want to be here because it's too damn expensive. So you have booms like Atlanta. You have in all these different places. Where do you see the majority of films kind of happening?
I think they're all over the place. I think the incentives by state are so significant now that it used to be that you would have to go to Canada to film a 2-hour film.
Yeah.
Because the incentives you could accrue 30% of the cost of the production in incentives.
It's amazing.
Now, to your point, Atlanta's a great place to shoot. Arizona is great. LA is great. New York is a great place to shoot as well. You don't really have to leave the state that really works for you, and you can negotiate these deals. There are a lot of studios that are being set up. Lionsgate, for example, has a studio in Yonkers. That's amazing.
So anyone can go in there as long as they've got the financing and the budget to do it and use these studio spaces.
100%. And we're partners with a studio in New York that does great. They have great stages. So it really depends what you want to do that.
Yeah.
I do believe that the move toward AI when it comes to some of the studio stuff, particularly as I mentioned in the unscripted space, will matter because you can recreate the scene behind you with a video wall and then use AI to do this. So I do think that there'll be a change on how you use these studios. You won't need as large as stages in the future.
So it'll be more cost efficient.
It'll be far more cost efficient. I mean, the budgets are crazy. I mean, when you do a recre and you have a budget that could be $100,000 for the recre to be done in AI, it's someone's time.
Yeah.
It's not the location. It's not the rental. It's really a different moment in time. And this is going to happen within the next year or two.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But reality television, which is mainly your wheelhouse now.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I don't think AI is going to impact it that much because people still want to get behind and watch people live their lives. People are obsessed with this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think follow docs will fall into that category, but a lot of the unscripted reality or that sort of programming, for example, in crime, recreation is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that recreation is going to become far more efficient. I'm a believer. Everyone's talking about the disaggregation and NBC spinning off its networks. Oxygen, MSNBC, CNBC, the Golf Channel. I think that there's a lot of worth still in those networks, even though they're being spun off because of the streaming side of the business. And importantly, they have a lot of cash flow. They add for advertisers the opportunity to cum an audience, meaning to get a bigger reach in that audience. So I'm positive on that. And for companies like ours, when they spin off the networks and then you're left on the other side with NBC, the studio, it used to be that NBC, the studio, would do, 30% or some percentage for their own networks. I think this is going to give independent production companies like ours and individuals a better opportunity to get more of that inventory. Because they're going to have to pitch. It used to be when we were at Time Warner, we would try to keep it to a Time Warner company if we were doing something. But now that those networks are going to be spun off, I think it's going to provide more opportunities for, entrepreneurs like us.
Yeah. So what would be your advice as a 30-plus year veteran in Hollywood if somebody's trying to break into this space? What would be your advice to them? How do they get repped? How do they get known? How do they get their work out there?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is do something that we talked about a little bit earlier is I think people are brands.
Yes,
like consumers,
personal brands.
Like consumer brands, like entertainment brands. Mm-hmm. For example, when we did the movie Austin Powers, American Airlines had come to me and said, I'll give you $30 million in marketing for this. And I said, no, Austin Powers, he's an underdog spy. American Airlines was the number one airline. It doesn't jive. They thought I was crazy at Time Warner. We ended up getting Branson and Virgin Airlines, which was an underdog airline, to give us $40 million in marketing to do that. I think people really are brands. And I think young people and older people should do their own positioning for themselves.
Yes.
What are they really about? Do people look at you? And it's from a buyer side, not from a seller side. When someone looks at me, do they think of me as a marketer, as a programmer, as a really just smart thinker? What is my positioning statement in the world? And I think that's the advice that I would give. Because it doesn't mean you have to live with what people, because people will label you. But when I think of you, what do I think? You're smart. You could do a lot of different things. You're fun. You're great.
Oh, well,
you're great with people. And what does that mean in terms of what you want to do? That's going to inform a buyer for every time you go out for a part or for a job interview or anything else. And that's the advice I would give. And it's not age specific. It's not only, though I think people should do it when they're 20 or when they're 18 and they're young, and really write it down. Write down what it is you mean to a buyer that's out there. How do they view you? How do they look at your personality? That's your positioning. Because I would argue, I bet you it will never change.
No, I really, that carries a lot of power, because it's like, when you're pitching something, you have your 30-second elevator pitch, right? But it's always an external thing, a project you're working on, but it's not really you.
It's not really you.
But everybody is a brand these days. And what is the brand?
And you should think of yourself as a brand.
Absolutely.
And then what set of expectations is that brand going to conjure up? And it's a roadmap to your future. And interestingly, it never changes.
That's amazing. So you've taken this advice yourself?
Yeah.
And where do you feel that this roadmap is taking you to the rest of your career?
Well, what I did, which I would also advise everyone to do, is think about what's the last job you want to have.
Oh, wow.
And then think of the building blocks to get to that job. So, for example, I knew I always wanted to run an integrated media company. And true, it happened with New Line. Maybe if I had moved to LA, because I managed my whole career out of New York, it would have been Warner's or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I went with an indie to begin with. But I think at the end of the day, I learned branding from MTV. I then learned production, which everyone said was kind of silly at New Line, because who wants to do production and physical production? And then each one of the companies, I learned licensing and merchandising when we were at Warner's. So now I'm an executive that could pull all of those together. So we have a movie, Grow Singers, coming out based on the Catskills that Dirty Dancing was based on. And we've decided we're going to do licensing and merchandising.
Absolutely.
So we have a Grow Singers matzah. We're going to have a Grow Singers wine. It was the #1 selling rye bread.
Yeah.
Because I learned all these different areas, and I thought it served me well, particularly with my own company. But there are examples of people. Jeff Bewkes ran Time Warner. He was a CFO by trade, a really smart guy after business school. So you can do it a bunch of different ways. But the one thing I would say is I remember when I first went over to AOL and I was talking to someone said, God, I don't know about AOL. When you're moving in your career, you're not investing in that company. You're trying to exploit something that they can provide you to grow.
Yeah.
And it's in traditional terms, it's building your resume. But it's really building your learning. And that comes down to what's the last job you want to have. And I knew what my job was, the last one. If I had said, I really want to be a production executive who only makes shows for the Food Network because I love food, and I want to, so be it. But you've got to define that last gig.
Wow. Okay, so what are your thoughts on retirement? Because I don't believe in retirement. I feel like retirement kills you. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think I'll ever retire. I'm on a bunch of boards. I'm on the board of AccuWeather.
Yeah, stay busy.
I'm on the board
of AccuWeather?
Yeah.
So the board of not getting fired when you get shit wrong?
No. By the way,
That's like the weather, right?
But it's funny you say that because we are very AI driven, and we are the most accurate weather, I would add. But
hence the name.
Hence the name. Having said that, I think at the end of the day, I will never retire.
Yeah.
The question is, I know at the end of the day, I won't say I wish I had another 5 minutes at work. That will be my friends and my family that I care most about.
Yes.
So I better make sure that when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not turning to someone saying, I wish I had done another 6 months here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You're going to milk it for all it's worth.
And the entertainment business is fun. They pay you a lot of money to have a lot of fun and do stupid stuff.
And you've mastered it.
I have mastered that stupid stuff thing.
You've mastered everything. You're a jack of all trades, right? Well, Bobby in the lobby.
Thank you, Madison.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your gift of your talents and your media experience and giving people hope and advice, because everybody needs it.
And it's always great to talk to you because you're so welcoming.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise. And thank you to everybody who's listening wherever you may be. We will see you next time to find out who's next. Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.